I've been living abroad for quite some time now, so I can safely say nothing really phases me. Now, I won't go so far as to say all the things that I'm going to talk about today are weird. So subscribe. Some of them are pretty interesting, and they're good to know if you're planning to move and live here in China. For example, the bike lanes. Here, bike lanes are for everyone and anyone. Back home in Singapore, where land is scarce, we generally don't have a designated bike lane. Sure, you can find one or two of them in the parks or by the beaches, but in most cases, we have none. In Australia though, bike lanes are prioritized. Like, it's only and solely for bicycles. I was even told off once by a police officer for cycling on the pedestrian footpath. But now that I've moved to China, it's free for all, man. Bike lanes, footpath, nothing really matters. Anything goes. So strictly speaking, there isn't a right or wrong for the traffic here, especially when the street signs are... Yeah, so always be careful when you're out taking a stroll. People here love to use their horns, and I'm not even exaggerating. It's like second nature for them. To put things into perspective for you, it's like saying hi to a random stranger on the streets for them. More often than not, it serves as a warning, for drivers to say like, hey, I'm gonna overtake you, so don't freak out and change direction suddenly. Even in Singapore and Australia, I know people who use the horns to say hi to their friends across the streets. So someone who uses the horn doesn't necessarily mean that he's rude or anything, but it does get quite annoying sometimes, especially when you are someone like me, who have a weak heart, and I get shocked like 10 times a day because people just abuse their horns. But enough with the road rants, let's talk about bargaining in China. If there isn't a price tag or if the price isn't very clear, it means that there is room for negotiation. Back in 2010, my friends and I came to Beijing under an exchange. And us being tourists and all, of course we had to visit the Silk Road in Beijing. The Silk Road essentially is a huge super mall that specializes in selling fake goods at crazy expensive prices. In there, you can find many vendors selling the same goods over and over again. So anyway, us being thrifty, we started haggling. We would bargain to the point that we would be shouted at. But please, don't think of us as being disrespectful. Because trust me, even at the lowest price that they offer, their profit margin is still very high. So what we'll do is we'll go to shop A, for example, and then we'll bargain for the lowest price that he or she would offer, and then we'll leave and go to another vendor that sells the exact same goods, and we'll start the process all over again. I mean, just take a look at us. Look at how proud we were. But because of that, we enjoy bargaining. And if you plan to come to China, you should enjoy bargaining as well. But before negotiating, you need to acquire some skills for that. Skills that will make you a nightmare for certain people. Alright, first you need to understand the unit of measurement. And it's a bit messed up here, kind of like the US where they don't follow the metric system. But anyway, like I've mentioned before in my previous video, the unit of measurement here is known as jin, which equates to 500 grams. So if you want to get 1 kilogram of something, you say you want 2 jin. But it's also important to note that there is another unit of measurement that is very commonly used here, and it is known as liang. 1 liang equals to 50 grams. So 2 liang equals to 100 grams. Easy, right? But here comes the confusing bit. If you understand Chinese, you know that the number 2 has 2 separate characters for it. Sort of similar to English where you have 2, twice or double. But I won't go down into specifics on when to use which. But in Chinese, 2 is represented with or liang. And it is the same character as liang, which represents 50 gram. So imagine if you want to get 100 grams of cocaine, I mean like coke. You don't say liang liang, you say liang. I know, bloody confusing, but that might be precisely the whole point of it. Next, discount in anywhere on planet Earth means the same thing. Like if something was to be on 80% sale, you automatically pay 20% of the original price. Cause like percentages, 100%, if you take away 80%, you only pay 20%. Here in China, it follows a different system. The maximum denomination is 10, and it runs from 1 to 10. 1 being 10% and 10 representing 100%. And the Chinese character for discount is 折. So when something is on sale, you see a tag that indicates whatever amount of the discount. But then it gets weird. For example, if you see something that's 6折, naturally you think like, oh, it's on a 60% discount, but apparently not. If something is on 6折, it means that it's on a 40% discount and you pay 60% of the original price. So the exact opposite of how the entire world works. Yeah, so it's a bit confusing when I first understood this logic, but it's a good one to note if you're planning to get stuff on discount. Now, while we're on the topic of shopping, imagine you're out buying stuff like dairy products. You expect to find the expiration date on the lid, right? Take for example, I just got this yogurt yesterday from the local supermarket, and the date that is indicated on the lid is the 27th of June 2021. June? Wait, isn't it already July? Yeah, just calm down, alright? It's not that every supermarket in China sells expired stuff. The date that is indicated on the lid is actually the production date. And somewhere around the packaging, you will find another number that indicates how long this product can be kept from the production date. So if you look around, it says, on this packaging, it says 21 days. So it means that this product can be kept 21 days from the 27th of June, which is, okay, you do the math yourself. Next, it's not news anymore that China is an extremely mobile reliant country. You don't need your wallet to survive, but you're practically useless without your phones. I'm sure you have heard about it from your friends who live in China. You need WeChat, Alipay, or many other apps to survive, including VPN, if you want to watch and subscribe to your favorite YouTube channel, So Thirsty. But of all the apps, I find the use of WeChat the most fascinating. In China, WeChat is used for everything and anything, such as paying for your bills and stuff. But more importantly, it acts as a messaging tool for both personal and work-related stuff. And I'm not talking about your 2 a.m. booty call to your boss saying like, oh, I can't finish my job, can I get an extension? No, I'm talking about real official stuff like sending stuff to the immigration center or visa office or even to the police center. They all use WeChat here. So much so that emails are almost defunct now. I say almost because they still have to deal with foreigners, and foreigners just aren't comfortable with the idea of dealing with official documents via anything but emails. Speaking of phones and apps, it surprises me when locals here really love spending time outdoor. Coming from Singapore, where we're pretty tech savvy, kids and people just don't spend time outside anymore. Public spaces are often neglected these days. And I see that as a common phenomena when a country gets too reliant on technology. People prefer to use their electronic gadgets than to go out, meet people, and have actual interactions at public spaces. But now I'm in Beijing, and you know, Beijing is like one of the most tech-savvy, most developed cities in China, but you still see people and kids and families hanging out in public spaces, and it really gets very crowded, especially during public holidays. Public holidays here are weird, like super weird. Imagine if you have an official public holiday on Wednesday, and then you suddenly realize that Mondays and Tuesdays are declared as public holidays as well. So you have like a super long weekend, Saturday to Wednesday. But then you hear the bad news. You have to pay it back during the next following weekend. And it comes as very uncommon or uncomfortable for foreigners like me. But I'll try and explain what I think the rationale behind this is. So in Asian culture, it's not really uncommon for people to be working throughout the weekend. So technically 7-day work week. So instead of having the citizens waste their annual leave by taking 2 extra days to have a long weekend, I think the government just gives them the 2 extra days and say, since my citizens are already working 7 days a week, I might as well just, let them have extra 2 days off. So if you think about it in this way, I think, yeah, it sort of makes sense. Also, on top of that, the entire country operates within the same time zone. So it can be 5 p.m. and it's sunset somewhere else, whereas on the other side, it's still bright and early. So for that reason, I think it's weird, but good at the same time. Imagine if you're working for a company that has many branches throughout China, and you need to have a video conference call with someone at another branch in another city. But because the entire country is operating within the same time zone, you don't have to worry if it's past business hours there. So for that reason, I think it's weird, but I can see the benefits for it. It's no doubt that Chinese people are very fashionable. If you have Chinese friends, you know that they dress well and they own a lot of fashionable or branded stuff. But since arriving in Beijing, I've noticed a fashion trend. And I'm not sure if it applies only to men or if it's specific to Beijing only. Just Google Beijing bikini men and you get what I mean. And I'm not even joking, like when I first saw it, I thought it was a one-off thing, like it was hot so he needed to cool himself down. But now as it's approaching summer, the weather gets a bit warmer, I see it more often. Is it a unicorn or is it a centaur? Oh my god, it all makes sense now. Well, at least that's one mystery solved. Let's talk takeaway. The character for meat in Chinese is rou. By default, any other meat other than pork has to be specified because pork is the nation's choice of meat. So if you order fish, it has to be fish meat, or duck, it has to be duck meat, and chicken is like chicken meat. So if you're at a bun shop like a bao shop and you see something like a rou bao or meat bun, it's generally understood as pork bun. It's very weird or confusing, but it is quite important to note, especially if you are someone with dietary requirements and you don't eat any specific meat. So you're welcome. And finally, while we're on the topic of food, sorry to burst the American bubble, but there isn't a single restaurant here that serves General Tso's chicken. I think it's just a stir-fried chicken dish that's been given an American name. But anyway, last weekend I went to a bakery and something caught my eye. I think it's the Chinese way of getting back at foreigners for tarnishing the names of Chinese dishes. Or is it just weird English? Well, I'll leave you guys with that. Thanks for sticking around. Also, let me know in the comments down below if you have encountered any interesting or weird things when living in China. I would love to hear about it. And if you have enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and stay so thirsty.